Maria is bringing tropical storm force winds to the North Carolina Outer Banks at this hour. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest on the Atlantic hurricane season. And to put things in a little bit of perspective, it's been an active hurricane season. We had a feeling it was going to be. And we had two Category 4 U.S. landfalls, one in Florida, one in Texas, with Harvey and Irma, to say nothing of the devastation in the Caribbean from Irma and then from Maria in the islands in Puerto Rico. Now you can see Maria is now a tropical storm. Looks like half of it is mostly dry air, which is the side over the United States East Coast, which is good news. However, there are still tropical storm force winds. We've had winds in Cape Hatteras gusting upwards of 50 miles an hour. This should all come to an abrupt end, though, once the system turns in response to a giant trough sweeping through the country, and we won't have to deal with Maria anymore ever again. I can guarantee there will never be another hurricane named Maria. You can see we have another hurricane, which is a very well organized little tiny thing. That's Lee. Lee came back. It regenerated after dissipating days ago, and it is now on the verge of becoming another major hurricane. Now, I want to start with Maria since that's currently giving impacts to the United States. Winds are down to 70 miles an hour. It is moving to the north at about 6 miles per hour. Still 974 millibars, very low pressure for a tropical storm, but the Air Force just not recording those winds anymore, so it cannot be called a hurricane. And even though it should be slow, it will then abruptly turn to the right, and by Sunday should be way out of here, and we will not have to deal with Maria anymore. Thank goodness. We're tired of it. The computer models are in good agreement. You can see with Maria getting that hard right turn straight out to sea. As the sun came up this morning, it was obvious that Maria was weakening. Dry air and cooler waters and just less favorable conditions exposing the center there, so you have very good symmetry and outflow on the right side of the storm, but on the left side you have just pretty much bone dry conditions. As a matter of fact, when we look at the radar, even though you have some showers heading in, this is far from a significant rain shield with this storm. So if you're in Elizabeth City or down to Morehead City, you guys will have some rain, some wind, but certainly nothing like a direct hurricane impact. We got lucky that Maria was able to avoid land. It didn't do a direct hit on the Turks and Caicos. It didn't do a direct hit on Bermuda or on North Carolina. It found the path in between. And we could kind of thank Hurricane Jose in part for that, for sticking around so long. So it's just been, between Harvey and Maria, it's been an insane month. It has been a crazy month in the tropics. Hard to think it's only been 4 weeks, but that's what happens in these active hurricane seasons. Now here's the latest on Hurricane Lee as of 5 p.m. Lee was at 29.9 north, 54.6 west. Winds were up to 110 miles per hour, so it's almost a Category 3. It's moving west at about only 7 or 8 miles per hour, but that should begin to turn. 971 millibars. Lee is stronger than Maria. Who would have ever thought that? And you can see the track here does also turn it in response. By Saturday, Lee will also be out. So Maria and Lee will be headed out to sea. However, Lee may reach Category 3. So that's going to be very interesting. We've already had Harvey, Irma, Jose, Maria, and if we get Lee, that would be the 5th major hurricane. Not to mention that Katia almost was a major hurricane. It's just been an incredibly active year. It happens. We've had years with even more storms, so don't read anything into it other than the fact that we have these busy hurricane seasons and sometimes luck runs out, and it really did this year. I could guarantee you there will never be another Harvey, Irma, or Maria, and the season's not done yet. There's the model guidance turning Lee out. Not a problem for any land masses. Bermuda, you could get some high swells though, although the hurricane's very tiny. This satellite image is just so beautiful. Lee is a strengthening hurricane. Look at the sun hitting the eastern eye wall. These visible satellites really show the majesty of these storms, but it's always good news when tiny hurricanes like Lee are avoiding land, despite how strong it's getting, which from the looks of that is well on its way to becoming a Category 3 major hurricane. So we'll have yet another And like I said, with the season not done yet, we're going to be watching other areas as well. Now, you can see the rain rate with our two storms. Maria, most of the rain offshore, and Lee, very, very tiny. Hurricane force winds in Lee only extend out about 25 miles. However, we will begin to watch the Caribbean Sea. Waters are still very, very hot down there. In fact, the Western Caribbean is one of the few areas that has not been tapped yet this hurricane season. So with all the likelihood of favorable conditions in the Western Caribbean and the hot water, and with the way this hurricane season has been, we could have some problems in the next couple of weeks. You can see the GFS model shows lower pressures around the Yucatan and the Caribbean. It doesn't show too many storms per se, although there is a little interesting feature. It pops up over South Florida and moves westward in the Gulf of Mexico. That's the GFS model. The Canadian model, you can see, takes a system and strengthens it and moves it west towards the South Texas-Mexico border. The European model doesn't show a system per se, but by 192 hours, clearly it's seeing a lot lower pressures down there over those very hot waters I just showed you of the Western Caribbean. And the no-gaps model also shows a storm spinning up over the Yucatan and moving into Mexico. So this is going to bear watching. You can see on the visible there's nothing there yet, but there is disturbed weather, and sometimes when we get these storms kind of leaving behind a wake and there's some tropical wave activity moving in, you could potentially get something going. So we're going to watch the Caribbean very carefully over the next 10 days to see if anything brews down there, and if it does, we'll keep you updated. You can see the trough sweeping through the middle of the country. Maria is going to get swept up. Our beautiful tiny little Hurricane Lee there is going to get swept up, and then things should quiet down, at least for a while, but we will continue to watch as this has been a very active Atlantic hurricane season. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll talk to you guys next time.